Hi, welcome to class. We're the only two right now, but the other ones will show up eventually, right? I hate my life. I hate my life. And Professor Sunrise Productions! Hello class, Professor Sunrise here. In today's class, we're finally taking a look at the Bystial Dragon Control, Dragon Link, however you want to call it, deck profile for the updated format. Of course, I was on a regional yesterday, but it didn't go as planned. As you can see in the title, there's no second place, first place, whatever. But I think that's mostly because of my own misplays. I lost twice because of my misplays, and then I lost once because of hard brick. Shit like that just happens. But honestly, still think the theory behind the deck is really solid. I just was very unlucky. I drew like a boot sector launch 6 times in 6 rounds. I drew Branded Beast 4 times. I drew Driver twice. I think so. These were just really unlikely, and I like almost every hand, like every second hand, I played with one less card just because I drew all of my bricks, and the likelihood of that happening is very low. So I still think it's just variety, and sometimes shit like that just happens. Still think the theory is really solid, and if I would have played better, I would have definitely gone to like X1 or X2 at minimum. So still think the deck is really solid, and I'm glad I can share it with you guys. So without further ado, don't forget to like and subscribe. Leave some feedback down in the comment section below, and let's get right into the video. So before we go into the card by card, let's quickly talk about my theory behind this list. So I was anticipating a lot of Kashtira, Super Heavy Samurais, and maybe some poorly on the side, but mostly those two decks, and I still anticipated a fair bit amount of Mathmax, Bride, and Branded, though I did prepare less for those decks, especially because my matchup was so good. But I didn't expect people for the first, I think, regional here, at least in my region, with the new set being legal, to all have those cards and all be comfortable enough to play them. But at least for Super Heavy Samurais, I wanted to prepare for that at most because I felt like it had like a very easy to pick up combo line, and it was relatively cheap, and if you had a lot of the staples, it was very easy to pick up. And overall my matchups were 2 Super Heavy Samurais, 2 Kashtira, 1 Mathmag, and 1 random going second Numeron deck. So I think I only played 6 out of the 8 because then I dropped. So I think my meta analysis was decent, and at the top tables there were a lot of Super Heavy Samurais, more than I thought so, and less Sprites and Mathmags than I anticipated. So in the future I would prepare less for those decks, maybe take like 1 side deck slot out for those, and then commit more into stuff like Ghost Ogres and stuff to hit the Super Heavy Samurai strategy, and also keeping our game against Kashtira fair, and while also keeping Expert in mind. So there's way more of the new decks than I anticipated for, but overall I still think the theory behind the deck is really solid, and especially the engine part really performed well in my opinion. So let's get into the card by card. We're playing 40 card in the main deck, so we finally got back to that. Reason for 40 card is that I really just wanted to play around Droll as effectively as possible. This deck really struggles against Droll if you play it like 60 and you don't draw your really good cards all the time, and you just have like the Dragon Toolbox vibe with going into the Ravine package and just getting to everything you always wanted. You can't do this anymore. You have to basically play like Bystial Control, and this is what I was doing. The whole tournament I just went for Seal Pass. I never committed. I never even could commit into like something bigger, and was very happy that I cut all of that stuff out, but you will see that later on in the deck profile. And I'm really happy with how I played the engine out of my deck. So for the Bestial package, we of course have 3 Lebellion, 3 Magnamid, 2 Serenia, 1 Drewsworm, and 1 Boldrake. Let's put them here. And then, of course, we have the Branded Beast and Branded Regain. For the Bestial package, I was very solid with the 2 Serenias. I always started on 1 out, going second, but going first, it was a very nice consistency boost to be like a very solid 2-card combo with Safeguard, but most importantly, just being a random Bestial name really helps to get into Seal. It's sending Lebellion is really good together with other Bestials, helps to play around Droll. If you have like a normal summon plus 2 Bestials, you can really go still forward everything you want to go for. 1 Drewsworm, 1 Boldrake is also standard, of course, because these are not really good disruptions anymore, and they are just utility pieces. And then only Regain and Branded Beast. I don't think a Toot is really good. I drew a lot of my breaks already, and the deck does play a decent amount of breaks, of course. At least for going second, and that having that random Branded Etude in there doesn't really help. It's not really that good against anything apart from Super Heavy Samurais, maybe. And even against that deck, it's not that solid, so you could maybe side it, and maybe I will test a little bit with it, but honestly, I don't think it's really that big of a deal, because if we set up Branded Beast and have like Seal and stuff like that against that deck, we are usually fine if they're going second against us, so I don't think Branded Attitude is all too necessary, but I will be testing with it just because you can get some mileage out of that, of course. But overall, I really like the Bestial package the way it was, and definitely think the 3 Rebellion is mandatory. I see a lot of people not playing this with 3 and I don't get it. This is the best card to activate if you're playing against Droll because it gives you into a Magnamid and then you can just do whatever you want afterwards. So I don't know why people are not playing this at 3. Then for the Chaos package, 3 Sacred of course, 3 Chaos Base, Wyver Burst to Cool Observant, and then 1 Levy. I really like this package, of course. This is the reason I wanted to go down to 40 because I wanted to see my Chaos, my Sacred and my Wyver Burst in the form of Chaos Base or just hard run it to cheese out Chaos Angels because I thought the meta was kind of unprepared for those, especially for against us. Once we baited out all of the non-engine going second, just making a Chaos Angel was really solid all tournament long. And just controlling the board off of that, and then just having this big towers monster people struggle to out was really helpful. And the theory just went off. Chaos Angel was really hard to out for a lot of people and was a really solid tool going second, especially because it protected a lot of the other synchros. And then we just did a shit ton of synchro plays, and the opponent couldn't do anything against them. So that was really solid. The Chaos Dragon Levineer was hit or miss. It only came up once against a Kashtira play, and of course the Rise Hard benefited, like it always does. But because I'm not playing the Ravine package and I'm not really playing all of the toolbox vibe, it going for the hand trip coming up less and less. And I'm thinking I'm gonna prepare and prefer myself using the Chaos Emperor Dragon just to have a way better turn 3 when it comes to engine, because sometimes it felt like I didn't really have enough gas in my turn 3. And I would have liked to have more, so maybe the Chaos Emperor Dragon could be nice. Maybe I can also see myself going up a little bit with the deck count again, just so that I can see less bricks, but honestly I don't think that's worth it, just because I think the amount of bricks I saw was just an abnormality, and you should not see as many bricks as I did. But the Levy was weird, just because we're not playing Ravine anymore, it comes less and less going first, and I would really like the Chaos Emperor to be in this deck, because our turn 3s, because we got rolled so often, we're a little bit lacking, and Chaos Emperor can really help with that if we just edit off the Magnamid in the opponent's turn. But overall, I really like the Chaos package, and Levy, of course, does still have its merits, of course, but it wasn't that crazy. I think I resolved like 2 or 3 times against super heavy samurais as well, just to break apart the board. But a Chaos Emperor would have done a similar job at that point. But maybe I will keep it. I will test with it, definitely. Now for the Rokket package, the best card and only really good card with 3 quick launch, and then I only play 1 Tracer, 1 Caliber, 1 Recharger, and 1 Boot Sector. And that's it for the whole engine I played. The rest of the deck is non-engine. Like I said, I cut the Dragon Ravine package because I realistically will never resolve it, because you will get drolled like almost all the time. And if you don't get drolled, the opponent will probably have an Ogre, and if you get Ogred on the Ravine, of course your Branded Beast doesn't get Ogred, so that's decent, but like going -1 and getting Ogred just was too bad in my opinion, and I didn't want to make that trade, so I'd rather get my Branded Beast get Ogred, and I can deal with that, and I have way more non-engine to deal with for my opponent than getting my Ravine Ogred. And especially because of Droll, you will never get there, and I haven't missed it a single time because I could just never get there. I got drolled the whole tournament basically, and it was fine because I prepared for it, and I just went for Seal Pass and had the solid Rokket engine to back up for my turn 3. Of course, we only really want to see a quick launch. I did try to test with 3 Rokket Tracers as well, because this can be a 1-card rank 4, and I was playing like Evil Swarm Nightmare with it, but that was just too bricky and it was running too many normal summons. So I just went to only 1 Tracer. Then we have 1 Caliber to have a summon of the quick launch if we don't want to waste our Tracer, so that we have a tuner to go into like this Sparta and stuff like that. And then of course the Recharger is standard, and the 1 Boot Sector. I'm also was thinking about maybe cutting these completely and maybe just playing 1 Tracer to have a searchable tuner, or like playing less of them and cutting the Boot Sector. But the problem then is that you don't have something to pop off the Tracer, and then you can just completely cut them to begin with. So the Boot Sector is sadly mandatory. This is a really solid card, and hard drawing it in a Droll meta is actually not that bad, because sometimes you just then have access to it. So if you hard draw Boot Sector plus save it plus a Rokket and you get Droll, it's actually good to hard draw it. So that may be some positive in this hugely negative Droll meta for us. But overall, I really like the amount of Rockets I played, and I wouldn't change it, and I also wouldn't change cutting the Ravine, just because it's not really a good meta call right now to play that card, in my opinion. Now for the non-engine, I actually managed to fit 11 non-engine slots into this deck, so that was really solid, at least for a Dragon Link deck, in my opinion. So we have the Gamma package. This was insane, the whole tournament. Droll was also insane, of course, and then I played 3 Imperm, which I was not too sure about. I would have rather have Ghost Ogre against the Super Heavy Samurai, but against Kashtira, I would have rather have Imperm. So this was like an okay card the whole tournament. It was decent, it did its job, so it's fine. I would play it again probably, just because Ogre is not good enough against everything else. And Imperm is like still solid against that deck. You can Imperm either one of their starters if they start like with Wagon, and that's a decent time to Imperm if you have something else maybe, or if your hand is really bad, or you can hit like the Link 1, which is also a decent time to hit them. But overall, this is not really that good against that deck, but it's a solid tool going second as well, right? Just baiting 1 negate. This deck can still play through the Super Heavy Samurai board, especially if they don't commit too hard. And together with Talents, it also works really well. Talents is really solid in the main deck. It's not really good against Kashtira, but because I already had the Imperm slots, which were decent against Kashtira, I wanted to have like a really solid generically card. It's really good going first right now. We have 5 Punishes for a draw against us, so that's really solid. And that just helped us combat a lot of the decks, and it was a really solid card going second. Talents overall is really good in Dragon Link, just because the deck is so gassy and can play through boards so well. And overall, I really like the non-engine. I don't think I would change it just because Ogre is really good against Super Heavy Samurais, but I don't still think there's enough Super Heavy Samurais to warrant playing more slots against them, especially because all of these 6 slots are really solid against them already, and Imperm is not dead against them, right? So I think the non-engine slots were really well, and was just my misplaying that cost me this tournament, in my opinion. But maybe that's just coping, and the deck is actually ass. Who the fuck knows? Anyways, there was 40 cards, of course, and I was really happy with it. Now for the extra deck, 1 Striker Dragon, 2 Seal, pretty standard, of course. Then we have the Borderland line with Pisty Triple Burst. I went through that sometime. Borderland, of course, also a really solid card, and the reason why the Rockets are so good, giving access to Borderland, which is an auto win against Super Heavy Samurais, unless they have a hard strong kaiju. It's really good against Kashtira, it's really good against Puli, so I still think this is a very solid pickup and a reason to play the Rokket engine. We have the Dark package with Dark, Unicorn, Access Code. I never went to those, I think. Went into Dark a little bit. Maybe you could cut them, but there's also not really something which you want to play anyways. So you still play them. If you play against Labyrinth, you would always make them. So still think it's a solid choice to play them. Now for Synchros, I play 1 Savage. I did play the Axel Synchron, and it did came up twice against Kashtira in 1 match, and I basically always played with a Barone on my board. So I still think I would play this just because all of our Ash baits and Droll baits are activating, with Gamma being legal to activate. So it's a really good bait, and it makes for auto wins if you get drolled, which could be auto losers. So it turns auto losers into auto wins sometimes. And if they don't droll us or ash us on Chaos Space or Lubellion, there's nothing really good to ash or droll anyways. So I think this is already a solid pick, just because we do have the space in the extra deck. So I really like this. And then we have 1 Baron, 1 Dispata, 1 Chaos Angel for the Synchrotans. I went through all of these a lot, and these are really solid, and they are the reason why I want to play this version of Bystial Control over the one which doesn't play any of the other, like no Black Metal, no Albert, stuff like that, just because a normal summon in this current meta doesn't really offer any utility if it adds something, because we will get rolled no matter what, and I would much rather resolve a Lubellion and get rolled than to resolve like a Black Metal, just because we have the Gamma and stuff like that. So a normal summon just needs to be something, a dragon which we can get on the board and link it off for Striker Dragon, so that we have a fodder for a Bestial, so we can go into Seal. That's basically all my normal summon needs to do. And the Rockets offer that utility while also giving me tuner access into all of these broken Synchrotans. So I really like the way how that played out, and it was really solid the whole tournament long. And then lastly, 1 Heretic Seal, not Heretic Seal, Heretic Dragon Tomb. I think I went for this once. I still think this is a solid tool, especially because we do play a bit more Bestial. Some other lists do with the 1 extra Ceremony. It definitely comes up like once or twice in a tournament, and just gives you those auto wins which you otherwise wouldn't have. Now for the side deck, I think my side deck was okay. I'm not 100% happy with it because I was anticipating a little bit more of a diverse meta. But we have 2 Ash, 2 Drew's Worm. I wouldn't play them like that again. I mainly played Drew's Worm against Mathmag. It was a solid card against Labyrinth as well, and against Sprite for going second. All of these decks weren't that represented, so maybe I could cut one of those slots because they were mostly there for Labyrinth so that I didn't have too many dead cards, but there was not enough Labyrinth to warrant that because we still have a very solid matchup against that, even with those dead cards. But against Mathmech, of course, they're insane. Against Sprite, the Drewsworms are also really good. But these were probably the most iffy cards, which I would want to cut. The rest of the extra deck was very solid in my opinion. We had 3 Raiden against Purdy, but also against the Rysard, so against Kashtira and against Purdy. These cards came in, I just never saw them. We have 2 Ogres, mostly against Super Heavy Samurais, but they're also really solid against Poorly, and in my side decking patterns, it made sense to only have 2 of those. In the future, I would probably put this to 3 just because it is so good against Super Heavy Samurais. Then we have 3 Dark Ruler no more. I was anticipating some Sprite, like I said, but also against the Super Heavy Samurais just combo version. This is a really solid tool. I just never sided it in because the times I played against Super Heavy Samurais going second, it was under time, or I just got too out by them because of my misplays. So there was no room to put this in, but I still think this is a solid tool. All of them were not on the Omega hand loop version, and if more people are picking up the Omega hand loop version, this becomes less good. But because how the meta is shaped up, a lot of Super Heavy Samurais players play very conservative and just go for like a Appaloosa Barone or like Barone Savage or something and keep some follow-up, and then just equalizing the playing field with a Dark Ruler, and then setting up our own board or setting up our own towers is really solid against them, and they cannot win against that. So I really like the Dark Ruler, especially because of how our deck interact those deck with our towers being really hard for them to out. And then lastly, I have 3 Skill Drain. Was a really solid card. I drew it a few times. Lost me a match once because I break, but that's just how it happens sometimes. Those slot gates can hurt you back. But overall, Skill Drain is a really solid card for this archetype just because of how big our Bestials are, how Seal works with it, how Drewsworm and Regain just is an auto win. If we have Skill Drain setup plus Regained and we have a Drewsworm in rotation, we win every game. It's really unreal, and I really like how Skill Drain works with this deck. So that's it for the deck. Hope you guys enjoyed this profile. Like I said, I still think the theory around this deck is really solid. The approach of going for like a Bestial control variant with just replacing all of your black metals, Albaz package, stuff like that with just the Rockets, so that you have still a decent amount of normal summons and ways to get dragons on the board. But those dragons are way better into draw and also are way better in a turn 3 thanks to all of the good synchro tools in Disparta and Chaos Angel. Is a really solid approach in my opinion. Having 11 non-engine slots in Dragon Link is insane as well. Like I said, I still think I just played way too bad to have a good performance. I missed some effects, like missing a Lubellion and Graveyard is like really bad, right? So in my opinion, it was just my own fault, and I still think at Nats I will play a list similar to that, and I will do way better than I did at this regional. Hope you guys enjoyed today's class. You guys are free to leave. Professor Sunrise out. Peace.